गणेशाय नमः। सरस्वत्यै नमः। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम्। अथ सूर्याथर्वाङ्गिरसंव्याख्यास्यामः। ब्रह्मा ऋषिः, गायत्री छन्दः, आदित्यो देवता, हंसः सोऽहमग्निनारायणयुक्तम् बीजम्, हृल्लेखा शक्तिः, वियदादिसर्गसंयुक्तम् कीलकम्, चतुर्विधपुरुषार्थसिद्ध्यर्थे विनियोगः, षट्स्वरारूढेन बीजेन षडङ्गम् रक्ताम्बुजसंस्थितम्, सप्ताश्वरथिनम् हिरण्यवर्णम् चतुर्भुजम्, पद्मद्वयाभयवरदहस्तम्, कालचक्रप्रणेतारम्, श्रीसूर्यनारायणम् य एवम् वेद स वै ब्राह्मणः। भूर्भुवः सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। सूर्य आत्मा जगतस्तस्तुषश्च सूर्याद्वै खल्विमानि भूतानि जायन्ते। सूर्याद्यज्ञः पर्जन्यो नमात्मा। नमस्ते आदित्य, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् कर्म कर्तासि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् ब्रह्मासि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् विष्णुरसि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् रुद्रोऽसि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् मृगसि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् यजुरसि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षम् सामासि, त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षमथर्वासि, त्वमेव सर्वम् छन्दोसि। आदित्यात् वायुर्जायते, आदित्यात् भूमिर्जायते, आदित्यादापो जायन्ते, आदित्यात् ज्योतिर्जायते, आदित्यात् व्योमदिशो जायन्ते, आदित्यात् देवा जायन्ते, आदित्यात् वेदा जायन्ते। आदित्यो वा एष एतन्मण्डलम् तपति, असावादित्यो ब्रह्मा। आदित्यो अन्तःकरणमनोबुद्धिचित्ताहङ्काराः, आदित्यो वै ज्ञानः समानो दानोपानः प्राणः, आदित्यो वै श्रोत्रत्वक्चक्षुरसनघ्राणाः, आदित्यो वै वाक्पाणिपादपायूपस्थाः, आदित्यो वै शब्दस्पर्शरूपरसगन्धाः, आदित्यो वै वचनादानागमनविसर्गानन्दाः, आनन्दमयो विज्ञानमयो विज्ञानगण आदित्यः। नमो मित्राय भानवे मृत्योर्मा पाहि, भ्राजिष्णवे विश्वहेतवे नमः। सूर्याद्भवन्ति भूतानि सूर्येण पालितानि तु, सूर्ये लयम् प्राप्नुवन्ति यः सूर्यः सोऽहमेव च। चक्षुर्नो देवः सविता चक्षुर्न उत पर्वतः, चक्षुर्धाता दधातु नः। आदित्याय विद्महे सहस्रकिरणाय धीमहि तन्नः सूर्यः प्रचोदयात्। सविता पुरस्तात् सविता पश्चात्तात् सवितोत्तरातात् सविता धरातात् सविता नः सुवतु सर्वदा आतिगुं सविता नो रासताम् ओमित्येकाक्षरम् ब्रह्मा घृनिरिति द्वे अक्षरे सूर्य इत्यक्षरद्वयम् आदित्य इति त्रीण्यक्षराणि एतस्यैव सूर्यस्याष्टाक्षरो मनुः यः सदा हरः जपति स वै ब्राह्मणो भवति स वै ब्राह्मणो भवति सूर्याभिमुखो जप्त्वा महाव्याधिभयात् प्रमुच्यते अलक्ष्मीर्नश्यति अभक्ष्यभक्षणात् पूतो भवति अगम्यागमनात् पूतो भवति पतितसम्भाषणात् पूतो भवति असत्सम्भाषणात् पूतो भवति मध्याह्ने सूर्याभिमुखः पठेत् सद्योत्पन्नपञ्चमहापातकात् प्रमुच्यते सैषा सावित्रीम् विद्याम् न किञ्चिदपि न कस्मैचित् प्रशंसयेत् य एताम् महाभागः प्रातः पठति स भाग्यवान् जायते पशून् विन्दति वेदार्थम् लभते त्रिकालमेतज्जप्त्वा क्रतुशतफलमवाप्नोति हस्तादित्ये जपति स महामृत्युम् तरति स महामृत्युम् तरति य एवम् वेद इत्युपनिषत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः स्वस्ति प्रजाभ्यः परिपालयन्ताम् न्यायेन मार्गेण महीमहीषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यम् समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Sai Ram. My first interaction with Swami was in June 1967 when my father and we had been for Swami's darshan in Vrindavan, Whitefield, Bangalore. As usual, we went for darshan in the morning, and when Swami came out, my father told Swami that I had taken Sanskrit as a second language in my 8th standard. Immediately Swami materialized Vibhuti and gave it to me, and then said, Bhaga Chadu Nayana, meaning, study well, dear. Now, that interaction had a deep meaning in my life, in retrospect, when I think about it. Afterwards, when I finished my schooling, I took up the science subjects, physics, chemistry, maths, and then graduated in chemistry, BSc Honours from Delhi University. When I was doing my second year chemistry honours, with the extraordinary grace of Swami, I was selected for the summer camp 1973 in Vrindavan, Whitefield as a student. During the summer camp, we had a lot of opportunities to interact with Bhagavan by His grace. On one day, even before the afternoon classes were to begin, three students, including me, we were just near the podium where classes were to begin. But it was 1 hour before, there was nobody else. And suddenly, out of the blue, Bhagavan came. And there was a chair for him, and he sat, and we sat at his feet. Bhagavan started asking, "What are you doing?" So, to each one of us. And when I mentioned BSc Honours Chemistry, he said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Swami, after finishing this MSc Chemistry, I might do now." Swami said, "Why don't you do CA?" I didn't know at that time what was CA, but he said CA is a good course, you do. So that sank into my consciousness like a seed. And I didn't attach much importance to that because I was out and out a science student. And at least I had a vague idea that CA is some sort of an accounting, has accounting subjects and commerce based. After finishing my chemistry honours from Delhi, I came back to Bangalore because my father was transferred and tried for MSc Chemistry. And whatever efforts I made, I couldn't get admission to MSc Chemistry. Even though in those days getting around 60-61% was considered to be fairly decent marks for getting that MSc. For some reason, whatever efforts were made, I couldn't get into MSc. So time was running out and I came to Sri Shanti Nilayam to seek Swami's blessings. I stayed here for 20 days in 1974. Each day Swami would look at me but he wouldn't talk. I enjoyed the beautiful divine atmosphere of Sri Shanti Nilayam, but I was a bit disappointed that Swami was not telling me anything. I went back after 20 days. Swami had not spoken to me, now did he give any interview. After I went back, my father was very worried. He said that don't lose time. If you don't get MSc, you think of some other courses. And then he said my cousin is a chartered accountant and he's a partner in a big firm in Chennai, and I'll ask him whether he will take you as a article clerk. And he wrote to his cousin, and immediately the reply came that yes, he can join, even though I was a science student. So without having any background of commerce, I just joined as an article clerk in a fairly medium-sized firm based in Bangalore. Even though head office was in Chennai, I joined the Bangalore branch of that. Chartered accountancy course, as you may be aware, is quite tough in the commerce and it is preferable to do your BCom before joining the CA course, because you'll have a foundation of accountancy, cost accounting, and so other commerce subjects. But I had none. I had faith in Swami that somehow I'll be able to make it, and started to study in right earnest for the chartered accountancy course. So, and in between, I used to come to Vrindavan also whenever Swami was there and have his darshan. In 1977, I appeared for the intermediate examination for CA. And I had prepared fairly okay, but I prayed to Swami because it is a competitive exam and they had percentage passes. I took both the groups, at that time 2 groups were there. Prayed to Swami, and then by his grace I could pass and get a rank all India. In 1979, I thought of appearing for the final exam also to finish off, prepared for it, and went for the exam. On the first day of the exam, I had a rude shock. My mind was almost blank, and I thought I didn't know answers to most of the questions. And I was desperate. And immediately I stopped. I didn't even write, and then started praying to Swami. I might have paid for 5 minutes or 6 minutes, I don't know. Even though every minute counts in CA examination, because it's quite tough and you'll have to write properly. After a deep, long prayer, straight from my heart, I sort of started writing. And wonder of wonders, what was blank before my mind, slowly the answers came into my mind for each one of these questions, and very, very confidently, even before the exam ended, I could finish. The number of hours, within 3 hours, it could be finished. And then I had full confidence that Swami has guided me and I'll pass. So all other exams were written with Swami's grace. And as usual, with his grace, I not only passed, and he gave me a rank, All India rank also. Now, in 1967, when Swami produced and gave me his Vibhuti and said study well, and during the summer course, when he told me that you study CA and not pursue chemistry almost, he had said that. And then subsequently not getting MSc and then getting into the Chartered Accountancy course and then passing the examinations with a rank and all that. On hindsight, the entire thing is a divine plan, I feel. And the omniscience of divinity and his hand in everything for achieving the purpose for which he has shaped us can be seen in all these chain of events over a period of years. By the extraordinary grace of Swami, he allowed me to join Sevadal when he came to Delhi in 1972. That was the first time I had taken to Seva activities. My father, my brother and myself, we were Sevadals when Swami came to Delhi in 1972. And Swami himself gave the badges. That was a big attraction. And 9 days from morning 5 o'clock, Swami would give darshan. Right from Nagar Sankirtan, after the final session of Nagar Sankirtan, Swami would give the Vishwarupa darshan in Delhi, and he would stand on the parapet wall to give darshan so that all could have his darshan. Those 9 days were a real eye-opener to me, because basically I was a very lazy person. I was not given to doing hard work in the house. But I found in those 9 days almost 24/7, in the sense all the 9 days, 24 hours, we were in some sort of seva activity, because the crowds were huge. Only a few hundred volunteers, Sevadal volunteers were there. And not a single day I felt very tired. I was always fresh when I was doing work, his work. Energy was boundless when I was doing his work. That was a new experience to me. I had never felt that kind of energy inwardly when I was doing work. I used to feel a sense of lethargy whenever I used to do my work, and sort of heaviness. But when it was Swami's work, there was a lightness about it. There is endless energy coming, generated being generated within, which made me do work from morning till night without even properly, without taking meals at the proper time and resting. And on the 10th day when Swami was about to leave, he blessed us with his divine speech and poured his love and then said, "This is the first time such huge crowds you have all seen." Because the crowd was in lakhs, and in 72 it was a phenomenon. We are not accustomed to it. And Swami's grace was everywhere, and those who participated in the seva activities were hugely benefited inwardly and uplifted. And that gave a taste of seva. What if somebody were to ask, what do you get out of seva? Why should we do? Why not we do work with a motive? So that we get something out of it, sort of a thing and all that. That's something, if you want it to be tangible, like money or whatever, that is a different kind of a feeling. There are expectations and so many other things involved in it. But this is out of love, and if it is done without any other expectation and just to please Swami, Bhagavad Preetyartham, it has got a different dimension altogether. It lights up our whole being and then blesses us. Now this Sevadal activity continued from 72. 73 also Swami came to Delhi and we were blessed with the same opportunity. I came back to Bangalore, and in 78 I joined again Sevadal in the Brindavan Whitefield Sevadal group. On the first day of my joining Sevadal, Swami came for darshan in the evening, and then he went back to his residence. And after about half an hour or 1 hour, it was almost dark, he again came out, and about 10 of us were standing, including the convener of the Sevadal. I was also there. Swami came to me and then said, "Kottavalla," which means, "Are you new?" I said, "Yes, Swami." Then he created Vibhuti and then told me to distribute it to other Sevadals who were there. Sharing. The lesson of sharing was taught on hindsight. Of course, at that time I didn't realize. I was asked to give, I just gave. But then, whatever good that we receive from God has to be shared with others, and we don't have to have a fear that if you share, our share of that will get diminished. That is the beauty of spirituality. The more you give, more it sort of gets manifested. Love manifests more as it is shared with others without any expectation. That was the lesson. Anything good that we get has to be shared with others, so that we don't have to have a fear of losing whatever we have, sort of a thing. In fact, it's boundless universal energy flows through us, and then whatever is required will come again to be shared again. We don't stop and then say, no, this I am going to have it for myself, sort of a thing and all that. So this selflessness is like a divine light. More the number of people who light from that lamp, all of them are lit, all the lamps are lit, and this lamp also is burning, and it goes endlessly. So the Sevadal taught me to expand this sort of a love instead of confining it to relatives and friends. Then after this Sevadal Seva with his grace continued till 1988. And on more than one occasion, Swami had called us to his divine residence after we finished the seva in the afternoon, and he used to provide us with prasadam and used to inquire about our welfare and all that. On one such occasion, after we finished our afternoon work, we were all sitting, expecting that Swami will come and then ask us to go inside Trei Vrindavan. Instead of that happening, Swami came very near to the group and then accosted us and then told us that work is over. Are you waiting for the wages for that work? That was quite a bit of a shock at that time, coming from Swami, and we didn't realize what he was what the meaning, deep meaning. Swami never says anything without deep meaning. What lesson he was trying to teach us. On hindsight, and after so many years in his organization, I now feel that asking for something in return for the work that we do limits the whole vision, limits the love that we are supposed to share in an unconditional way, and sort of cuts us away because of that motive or desire from the divinity within. Because the desires act as a block for the divinity to manifest, and divinity manifests when there is unconditional love. So if we work with a motive of getting a particular thing, like even Pada Namaskar or any other thing, worldly or otherwise, there is some sort of a block which gets formed with God also, and then so you did this work and you expect me to give this sort of a thing, and then the whole thing ends there. But if you want an unending relationship with God, I am very, very clear that just do the work. Don't have the sense of doership that you have done the work, and don't aspire for the fruits. And then God Himself says, I'll take care of your work. You don't have to take care of your work. You do my work, which is, His work is a universal work of Loka Kalyana. There is no individual work for God. There is no individual work for Swami or other avatars. Loka Kalyana is their work. Once we participate in that activity, automatically all our worldly needs are all taken care of by Him without our asking so. Over a period of about 5 decades, this has been my experience. And one more thing regarding work, when we work, we come across situations and people where friction might be involved, conflict or friction might be involved. I used to be a bit tough and rough when I was doing work, if it was not going the way in which I wanted. Swami taught me slowly and lovingly that you are working, but you are creating a lot of conflict and friction. Work with harmony. That is what he taught. And over a period of 1 or 2 decades, I have been working on that aspect of my personality. Without the doership notion, we have to work. Without expecting the fruits, we have to work. We have to work in harmony. All the 3 aspects of work endears ourselves to God, and whatever needs to be done, He knows, being omniscient. And there is a continuous connection without desires disconnect. And when it is done without that desires, you have a sort of a flow of connection. It is a flow of love, divine love and our love, and flow of connection with God, with Swami for us. After I worked for about 9 years in India, I was posted in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia on a project. And the project work would involve various kinds of activities, not only accounting, customs clearance and so many other activities involved in that project. And day after day, I would go early in the morning and then come late in the night, cook and eat. And I was accustomed to attending bhajans and going to Vrindavan Whitefield whenever Swami was there. All those things were missed when I was in Kuala Lumpur. And day after day, there was a restlessness growing in me that, is this the kind of life that I want to lead further? On the one hand, the commercial part of this, the economics of working abroad, earning money, having a comfortable life with a big house and car and all that, was drawing me. On the other hand, a force much greater than that was drawing me to abandon the whole thing and walk the path of spirituality. One night, the opposing forces were so intense. One night, the conflict between the worldly motives and the spiritual aspiration became very, very intense. And I thought I should decide my future there and then. And I prayed to Swami. My thoughts ran somewhat like this. An avatar incarnates on earth once in thousands of years, and we have one right now, and we are extremely fortunate to be born during the time of the tenure of the avatar. I thought, I have been leading some sort of a worldly life. I must have been leading even in my past lives. I may be leading the same sort of a worldly life in my future also. Why not I use this opportunity of after a long time of soul searching on that night, my mind became very clear, and I thought that this birth should be spent only for serving in his mission. And I had enough of all this worldly pursuit of making money and all the rest of it. I had no doubt at that time, Swami had clarified once for all that this birth should be dedicated to his mission. That was the starting point of my thinking of resigning from that job and coming to Prasanthi Nilayam, asking Swami whether I can join in his mission and work for it till the end. And when I got some breathing time after about 6 months after this incident, I came to India on a brief tour and then came to Prasanthi Nilayam to ask Swami whether I can leave the job and then come and then serve. One day when I was seated in the darshan, when Swami came, I gave a letter saying that I want to discontinue my job there, resign, and then come and then serve in this mission. Swami took the letter, didn't say anything. That day evening, in July 1990, Swami sent word through the secretary of the ashram, of the trust, that I should be seated in the front row next day morning. Swami would like to speak to me. It all happened in 3-4 hours. Next day morning, I was seated in front, and there was another person also who was seated next to me in that front row, and I didn't know anything about him. Swami came, just smiled at us, both of us, and took some devotees for interview, and then went into his interview room. After about an hour or so, when the interview was over, he opened the door and then called both of us to come in. When we went in, both of us asked Swami that we want to leave our jobs and then come and then serve in Swami's institutions. Swami immediately told us that we can resign and then come, and we can serve in his institutions. We were overjoyed, and Swami also told us that the next day also he'll speak to us. The next day we were seated somewhere in the 15th row or something, and Guru Purnima was in the offing, and there was a huge crowd. And Swami came all the way and then waved to both of us, then said, "You two of us go in." We were overjoyed. We thought Swami would miss us in that crowd. When we went in, there were 8 more waiting students students who had finished their graduation or post-graduation courses who wanted to serve in Swami's institution. And Swami called us, about 9 or 10 of us, and started talking about what it means to serve in his institutions. There were a lot of powerful messages Swami gave, which we didn't understand at that time. But subsequently, on hindsight, we find that all were relevant when we started serving in his institutions at various points of time. One of the things that he mentioned was, think deeply before you want to serve in the divine institution, and once you make a decision, don't go back on it. That was not very clear to me why Swami said that at that time, but subsequent events proved that Swami's omniscience and his plan for us, and how our negative thoughts might take us away from even serving, etc. So many other factors were involved, and Swami's divine omniscience takes care of past, present and future before he advises us and gives us some message. I resigned my job in 1990 December and came back to India and immediately went to Puttaparthi in December 1990 and waited for Swami's instructions. Swami would play with me. One day he would speak to me, another day, a few more days he won't speak. And during the past 2 interviews, I had asked Swami that I would like to teach, and Swami had said okay. But when I came back to India, probably he had other plans. I kept on asking Swami, and Swami was silent, and one day he asked me to talk to some functionaries in the trust. I went and spoke to them. They advised me, why do you want to have your own way? Why don't you leave it to Swami? Wherever he gives you an opportunity to serve, why don't you accept it? But I had a very deep aspiration for teaching, and I kept on asking Swami. And Swami would play around, he'll talk something, and then but wouldn't say anything direct about where he wants to use my services. Then one day I decided, why should I make a choice? Why not I leave this choice to the divine? Having left everything in the faith that he'll take care, why am I putting conditions? Why this conditional devotion or conditional love? So I just left it. Wonder of wonders, within a few days, Swami asked me, where would you like to work? I said, Swami, wherever you want me to work. Then Swami said, okay, I'll tell you. Then after a few days, he called me and my father, and there he told me that you work in Sri Sathya Sai Books and Publications Trust. That was in February 1991, and I started working there. I was an accountant, so obviously Swami put me in that accounts, this thing, etc. In the job itself, there is nothing different from what I was doing outside and here. But in my attitude and the motive with which I had come here, and the divine work of Loka Kalyana in which I was participating, had an entirely different connotation for me in my life. Slowly things started changing for me inwardly about work and as well as about divine work, about unconditional divine work, and so on. Days passed, and then he put me into Sri Sathya Sai Bhakta Sahayak Sangha also, in which canteens and other institutions are involved. Publications division, canteens. Started working. Then, one day in 1995, he sent word that I should take over the finance function of Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust, which is the mother trust. It was a huge trust in which Swami was the sole trustee, and he wanted me to take up the finance and accounts function. So when I was asked by the trustees, to whom Swami had given the mandate to ask me, I said, if it is Swami's will, I'll do that. And immediately things started happening. The huge Anantapur water project, drinking water project, was to begin anytime. And the first orders were to be placed for pipes. Larsen and Toubro were the contractors for the entire Anantapur drinking water project. It was a mammoth project worth more than 200 crores. And Swami had reposed extraordinary faith in me for doing the finance function part of the finance and accounts function part of the project. I was overwhelmed by the whole thing, but deeply inside me, I knew that since Swami had selected me, he'll guide me also. In one of the subsequent interviews in which my father and I were there, my father told Swami that such a big project, I am not very sure whether he'll be able to handle it. Swami immediately told him, once I ask a person, once I appoint a person, once I nominate a person for a particular work, I give him all the knowledge, attitude, and everything that is required to fulfill the work involved, to do the work involved. So that was a tremendous assurance coming from the divine. And I started my seva in Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust, which is the mother trust of Sai organizations. There are innumerable lessons Swami taught me. I could go and meet him in his residence at any time regarding any of this official work. Swami had permitted that with his extraordinary grace. And I'll share a few lessons that I learnt. Initially, the water project was only for about 110 crores. That was the original project estimate. But as that estimate was made a long time back, and as the project started in full steam, the trust ran out of funds. So, one day, we received a huge donation from a donor who wanted to donate for medical purposes, for the hospital that Swami had started. I took the check to Swami and asked him, Swami, whether we can use this for the water project. Swami said, when the donor's intention is for a particular purpose, we have no right to divert it, even though there is a need for it. Incidentally, during that time, we had ran out of funds and we had to borrow heavily from a nationalized bank for further implementation of the project. And that was one of the biggest eye-openers in my life. Here is an institution, here is a deity who is borrowing huge amounts to do charity. We have heard of borrowings by companies to do business and then repay. All those things are known to us being chartered accountants. But I have never known of a charity borrowing a huge sum of account with interest to be paid to do charity. And Swami did it quietly without any fanfare, as if he is just doing his divine duty of serving the humanity. During the course of such financial constraints, a donation comes a huge value and Swami says, no, we can't divert it to a water project. It has to go to the project for which it was originally intended. Even though we have funds there for medical purposes, Swami didn't allow me to divert it to the water project. So the two big lessons in the water project were serving humanity with unconditional love. If such a motive is there, funds will come and God will go to any extent to implement such projects, even borrowing and paying interest, etc. And is a lesson for humanity in future. The second one is honor donor's wish, his motive, his purpose. Don't use your own discretion or whatever it is to divert that. That is another, whatever your economic considerations may be. Some more lessons were learnt. One day, seeing how we were struggling to repay the loan that we had taken from the bank, without telling Swami, I collected some checks. They were donations which I wanted to give to the Central Trust, about 40-50 inmates who were working in the various Sai institutions there inside Prashanti Nilayam, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 like that. Gave about 40-50 checks. I took it to Swami and then gave it to him. Swami gave back the entire bunch of checks and then said, your seva is much greater than these donations. I don't want your donations. Give each check to the person, devotee who had given you. Tell him what I have told you now, that seva is greater than the donations that you can give. Swami doesn't want your donations, he wants only your seva. That day I learned what divine seva means to God himself. Not from human point of view, from divinity point of view, what it means to divinity itself. That was a great revelation. That is a lesson even today I cherish. Once when I was in his company, divine company, initially Swami had told me, you were working in Malaysia and you were having 4-bedroom house with a car and a driver and so many other luxuries, etc. We will not be able to give all these things in the trust. Is it okay for you? Coming from divinity, I immediately responded, I didn't come for such things here, Swami. Your grace is enough. Let me do your seva. You will take care of me, I know. I don't have to save for my future. God is my insurance. Swami was extremely pleased and it remained. It was my lifelong dream not to ask such things from Swami. Even before I was drafted to work in Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust, a year before, one of the senior functionaries came to me and then said that Swami says that you will work in super speciality. At that time, in super speciality hospital, which was only in Prashanti Gram, there was a very senior person who was doing the work very well. And I had no earthly idea how I am going to fit into this whole thing. And on another day, the same functionary comes and tells me that you are going to work in Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust. That is what Swami says. I also had no inkling when and how and where I am going to work. Within a year, Swami asked me to work in Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust, and I wondered at Swami's omniscience or foresight or what it is, we don't know. In the same way, after 7 years of his mentioning that I will work in a super speciality hospital, a super speciality hospital came in Whitefield, Bangalore, and Swami asked me to work there. And I was wondering, 7 years before he had told me that, the functionary who came and told me that I will work in a super speciality, how that whole thing is there. This only shows his master plan and for us, each one of us, and we don't have to really plan for ourselves when we leave everything in his hands. It is not an overnight wisdom that can dawn in us that if once we entrust our life to him, he will take care of all our needs and we don't have to worry. It comes over a period of time. He gives experiences about his omniscience and about his kindness and compassion, and then at each stage he makes it known to us, I know everything about you and I'll take care of it, you don't worry. He keeps on telling us, you do my work, I'll do your work. What does my work mean? There is no selfishness in Swami. What can his work mean? His work is Loka Kalyana. It can't be any individual work for oneself. It is Loka Kalyana, for the good of the world, for the welfare of the world. That is why an avatar comes. He is a cosmic being. He doesn't have any individual desires or any such things which we have. So once you participate in his work, you are actually participating in the universal work of Loka Kalyana, and with Bhagavat Prityartham as the main motive for participating in his work. If we do the work without expecting every time some reward for whatever we do, we get into the universal being's work, the work that a cosmic being does, and automatically results flow without our asking. Whatever our needs are provided for us. Times without number this has been proved in my life in the past several decades, and I don't worry about my own future at any point of time, because Swami has already taken care of that. In fact, in one of the interviews in 1995, when he drafted me to Sri Satsai Central Trust, only my father and I were there. Swami suddenly mentioned his mother is worried about his future. What will happen to him after her passing away? Tell her that I am assuring that I will take care of him. Every word that he gave to my parents or to me, or what was not given, everything has been arranged in my life in the past several decades of my service in his mission. Now coming to Super Speciality Hospital, he suddenly one day called me and then said, you work in the Super Speciality in Whitefield, which has been formed within just 3 months of its inauguration. I didn't know much about medical matters, but Swami said, I'll take care. In fact, my father had mentioned to him that he doesn't know much about medical matters, nor does he know about this much of finance and other matters, such huge expenditure and all that. But Swami said, I'll take care, don't worry about it. So I was drafted to work there, and I had the privilege of presenting to Swami, not that he needs to be presented, he is omniscient. He gave us an opportunity to tell him how many operations were being done there, how is it functioning, what are the other needs of the hospital. He gave us an opportunity, even though he was omniscient. Everything that Swami did was to give us give his devotees an opportunity. Avataram vachinade avakasham vivadaniki. That's what Swami says. So it is not that he need not come here. His coming here is only an announcement to us that God can be approached, God can be understood. Unless he comes in a human body, a human being cannot understand God. So he gives innumerable opportunities, even though he is omniscient, omnipotent and omnipresent. He can get all the work done without a form. But then he doesn't want that. The drama is the human being should participate in his mission so that they also get transformed. That is the main purpose of his mission. I'll just come back to it in a few more moments. In the meanwhile, I'd like to mention two or three incidents or lessons that I have learned. Out of the innumerable lessons, I'll just mention a few. One is a super speciality involves huge medical consumables and other expenditure. As a chartered accountant, I wanted to have an eye on that expenditure because I didn't want to waste Swami's money. So once I had mentioned to Swami, I'm very terribly scared of wasting your money. How can I not waste? But Swami had always told me, you can spend crores of amount if it is for a legitimate cause, but don't spend even one money if it is not, if it is a wastage. So I was feeling a bit jittery. I asked him. The first thing that Swami did was, he said it is not Swami's money, it is donor's money. And I was wondering. Swami said, donor out of trust in Swami donate to Central Trust, and we should not belie their trust. We should use them for the purposes for which the donor gave, and we should not waste a single rupee. So, of that, so that, they also feel that their money has gone to proper purposes. So, that was a great lesson in my this thing. We tend to attribute it to Swami's money, I should not waste and all that. It is actually Swami put the whole thing in perspective, because the entire thing is Swami's. The whole universe is Swami's. Not only this money or whatever money is there. So this is a donor's money which has to be spent for the purposes for which it is given. Another thing is, while doing Swami's work, it should not be done in a haphazard way, because we are doing seva and then feel that anyhow it is seva, okay, I'll just do work and then go. There should be a sense of ownership in that. that what is this ownership? You're not owning the property of the trust or whatever it is. This is our institution. This work is ours. What is this ours? God and man has a partnership in all the local Kalyana work. What is this partnership? God says, I incarnate for dharmodharana. So the restoration of dharma. In that he uses man as an instrument. Why only man should be an instrument? Man means human beings. Why they should only be instruments? And who is this God that we are talking about? God is nothing but unconditional love. And there, somewhere there's a spark of unconditional love in human beings also. Otherwise they won't be born at all. All human beings have unconditional love. That spark God uses to establish dharma, to see that His love flows through that selflessness, through the selfless love that the devotee has, uses that love, blows it up, and then uses man as an instrument. So for the flow of this divine love, then for in a hospital through patients, the doctors and nurses and technicians who are involved in as carers for patient, it flows through them, it flows to the patient, and from the patients to the society. This entire flow of love is what spirituality is all about, as I have understood over these decades. Because spirituality is about unconditional love, and the avatar is a great manifester of this unconditional love. He manifests it out of immense love and kindness and compassion for human beings. And then Sai Avatar gave ready-made structure for medical care, for educare and social care, so that those who feel the urge to participate in this mission by transmitting His love, by being an instrument of His love to the world at large, were called upon inwardly. Heart to heart is the connection, and they were called upon. Those who felt that call, they participate in this, and then this love flows to society. That is the ultimate cure for all the diseases and ills of society. Because the operations that we perform on patients, or the education that we give students, etc., they have limited shelf life, and they are limited, like physics, chemistry, maths in education, or the open heart surgeries and others we do, say for 10 years, 15 years it is there. But in the meanwhile, that love has flowed from the divine to the carers, like doctors, the nurses, technicians, the managers, etc. Then it flows to patients, and from patients to society at large. And then this love is the cure-all for all the ills, including even getting wisdom, including liberation. Ultimately, Swami had set up a structure through which there was an inner call. He didn't make an advertisement, or there was no publicity. It is all heart to heart. His mission was love to love and heart to heart. From the heart he called upon those who had the urge, even a little bit of urge, to express that urge as loving service to society, so that the whole flow is complete. And since God's love energy is infinite, this is an eternal divine flow of spiritual love, which is the ultimate medicine for all the ills of human beings on earth. To sum up whatever I wanted to convey, I would like to say, love is the only factor that gives completeness to our life. I've tried to earn money when I was young. Money earning was endless, and there was never a complete satisfaction or joy in that. And once I abandoned that and got into this seva in Sai Mission, and over a period of time slowly moving away from work with motive to work without motive, in harmony, with love, and being an instrument of in the flow of the divine love from the avatar, I have found my heart has opened up and I have a sense of completeness in my life wherein automatically the other worldly desires subside. It is impossible to control worldly desires one by one. But if we live in this state of unconditional love, even for a few moments, and taste its flavor, I feel that that is enough. That one factor of unconditional love, even though lived only for a few moments, a few minutes, a few hours in a day, that provides a complete sense of completeness to my life. And during those moments, there are no desires, and then that itself acts as a final end or the purpose of our life. Jai Sai Ram.
విద్యార్థులారా,
Students,
విద్యను అభ్యసించిన తర్వాత
after you get the education,
గృహస్థాశ్రమంలో ప్రవేశించుట పూర్వము
before they enter,
విద్యార్థులందరినీ చేర్చి కూర్చి
making them congregate in a place,
అధ్యాపకులు ఒక సువిషయాలంతా కూడా వారికి బోధించేటువంటి వారు.
teachers would teach the good things of life to them.
దానిని స్నాతకోత్సవం అని పిలుస్తూ వచ్చారు.
That was what was called convocation in
ఆ
those days.
స్నాతకోత్సవంలో వచ్చేటువంటి యొక్క ఉపదేశం ఏమిటి?
What are the teachings in this convocation?
జగత్తునకు నీవు ఉపకారిగా నిలిచాలి.
You should serve the world and help the world.
తల్లిదండ్రులను మొట్టమొదటి నీవు గౌరవించి ప్రేమించాలి.
Respect and love your parents.
మన యొక్క జాతీయ అభిమానాన్ని మీరు పెంచుకోవాలి.
Develop patriotism and love for the country.
దేశాభిమానం నీకు అత్యవసరంగా ఉంటుండాలి.
Patriotism is most important for you.
ఈ దేశాభిమానమే కోల్పోయి
Giving up patriotism,
విద్యను పూర్తిగా గావించినామని విదేశాల్లో ప్రయాణం చేసేటువంటి వాళ్ళు వీరు దేశాభిమానం ఎట్లవుతారు?
those people, after finishing their education, who go to other countries, forget their own.
దేశాభిమానాన్ని పెంచుకోవాలి.
Patriotism has to be developed.
సామాజిక యొక్క జీవితాన్ని మనం గడపాలి.
You should have a social life.
జాతీయత జీవితంలో గౌరవాన్ని సాధించాలి.
We should attain respect in the society.
అది ఏ విద్యార్థులు అందుకోవాల్సినటువంటి ప్రధాన బోధన.
That is the most important teaching which students have to learn.
ఈనాడు ప్రమాణం చేశారు.
Today you took a pledge.
మేము ఈ రీతిగా ప్రవర్తిస్తాము, ఈ రీతిగా మేము నడుచుకుంటాము, మా జీవితం ఆదర్శవంతంగా జీవిస్తాము అని ప్రమాణాలు చేశారు.
Today you took a pledge that you would live your lives in an
ఈ
ideal way.
ప్రమాణములు జీవితంలో రక్త పర్యంతం కూడా ప్రసరించాలి.
But they should pervade in every atom of your blood.
కేవలం స్నాతకోత్సవ సభలో ప్రమాణాలను మాత్రం ఉచ్చరించి
It is not just pronouncing the
ఆ
pledges.
ప్రమాణాలు ఈనాడు విస్మరిస్తే తనకు తాను ద్రోహం చేసుకున్నటువంటి వాడు అవుతాడు.
If you forget those pronouncements and teachings, you are deceiving
విద్యార్థులారా,
yourself.
మీరు
Students,
అభ్యసించినటువంటి ఈ విద్యలందరూ కూడాను సమాజంలో ప్రవేశపెట్టి
this education should be about
సమాజ
the society.
క్షేమాన్ని మీరు దృష్టి అందించుకొని
Having social welfare in view,
భారతీయ సంస్కృతిని మీరు కాపాడుతూ రావాలి.
we should protect Indian culture.
ఈ సంస్కృతిని మీరు ఏనాడు మీరు ఉల్లంఘిస్తారో
When you transgress this culture,
ఆనాడే మీ యొక్క జీవితం కూడాను కొన్ని విధమైన పెడమార్గం పడుతుంది.
then your lives will take a wrong path.
అధికారమునకు మీకు ప్రాకులాడకండి.
Don't struggle for authority,
ఆచరణకు మీరు కృతజ్ఞతలుగా ఉండండి.
but be
ఆచరణలో
practicing.
ప్రవేశించండి.
Get into practice.
పది చెప్పేటువంటి దానికంటే ఒకటి చేసి చూపించు.
It is better to do one thing rather than to tell 10 things.
కనుక ఆచరణే మన యొక్క విద్యార్థులకు అత్యవసరమైనటువంటిది.
Practice is most important for the
ఈ
student.
ప్రాక్టీస్ లోపలనే మనకు సరైనటువంటి ప్రాక్టికల్ విద్య మనకు లభ్యమవుతుంది.
Only by practice we learn practical education.
ధన సంపాదన మనకు ప్రధానం కాదు.
Earning of wealth is not
గుణ
important.
సంపాదన అత్యవసరం.
Earning of character is important.
నేటి విద్యలు తెలివి తేటలనే పెంచే
Today's education develops only
కొంచెమైన
cleverness,
గుణము పెంచబోదు.
but they don't develop little of character.
కోటి విద్య నుండి గుణము లేకున్నచో ఫలమదేవి వాని విలువదేవి.
What is the use of that person? What is the value of that person if he has all education and no character?
చదివి వ్రాయ నేర్చిన వారందరూ విద్యావంతులేనా?
Can we call those who learn reading and writing
కాలేజీల
educated?
డిగ్రీలను పొంద విద్యావంతులగునా?
Can anyone become an educated person by,
సుజ్ఞానము సుకృతి లేక విద్యను సద్విద్యులగునా?
without wisdom and noble conduct? Can education be good?
బ్రతుకుటకే విద్య అన్నా బ్రతుకులేదే పశుపక్షులు.
If education is only for a livelihood, are not beasts and
బ్రతుకు
birds
కోసమా
living?
మన విద్యలు? కాదు కాదు.
Education is not for a living.
పశుపక్షులు బ్రతకటం లేదా?
Are not beasts and
అవి
birds
ఏ
swimming?
కాలేజీకి పోతున్నాయి,
Which is the
ఏ
college they are
యూనివర్సిటీలో
going to?
డిగ్రీలు తీసుకుంటున్నాయి.
Are they getting any degrees in the universities?
మీరు ఇంత కాలేజీకి వెళ్లి విద్యను అభ్యసించి డిగ్రీలు పొంది మీరు కూడా పశువుల వల్లే ప్రవర్తిస్తే ఇంకా విద్యకు అవిద్యకు ఉండేటువంటి భేదం ఏమిటి?
After having entered the college and the education, you also behave like beasts. What is the difference? Students,
పల్లెల్లో మీరు ప్రవేశించాలి,
enter the villages,
బీద ప్రజలకు మీరు తగినటువంటి సహాయం చేయాలి,
serve the poor people.
సేవలు చేయటమే ప్రధానమైనటువంటి యొక్క సారము ఈ విద్యలో.
The essence of education is service.
కనుక దేశ సేవలో మనం పాల్గొనాలి.
We should serve the country.
సమాజ సేవ కంటే మించినటువంటి సేవ ఉద్యోగం మరొకటి లేదు.
There is no higher employment than social service.
సేవకుడే నిజమైన నాయకుడు.
A servant is a real leader.
కనుక మీరు సేవలో మీరు నాయకత్వాన్ని వహించండి.
You get leadership through service.
ఈ విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క పవిత్రతను మీరు ఏనాడు మీరు పెంచుకోగలరో
When you have this type of sacred feeling,
ఆనాడే మీరు విద్యావంతులు, పూర్ణ ఆదర్శప్రాయులు.
then only you can be called educated men and completely perfect men.
వేరు వేరు యూనివర్సిటీలో ఏ విధంగా జరిగినప్పటికీ మన యొక్క సత్యసాయి ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ లో ఉన్నటువంటి విద్యార్థులు ఆదర్శ విద్యార్థులుగా రూపొందాలి.
Whatever may be the situation in other universities, our students in Satya Sai Institute,
నైతిక, భౌతిక, ధార్మిక, ఆధ్యాత్మిక శక్తులను మీరు క్రోడీకరించుకోవాలి.
they should develop moral, spiritual and physical and intellectual strength.
నిజముగా మనకు ఒక విధమైనటువంటి యొక్క ఆదర్శవంతమైనటువంటి యొక్క నీతియే లేకపోతే మన జాతి ఏ జాతి?
If we do not have ideal morality, what is our community?
కనుక మనది నీతి కలిగిన జాతి నిజమైన జాతి.
A real community is that which has
జాతి
morality.
గౌరవము నీతిపై నిలుచును.
The honor of a community depends on its
నీతి
morality.
లేకయున్న జాతి చెడును.
Without morality, community will get
నీతి
declined.
గలుగు జాతి నిజమైన జాతిరా.
A community
వీరుడు భారతీయ వీరసుతుడా.
with morality is real community. Here, oh brave son of Bharat,
కనుక నీతికై మీ జీవితాన్ని త్యాగం చేయండి.
you should sacrifice your life for
నీతి
morality.
పోగొట్టుకుని ఎంత అధికారం అయిపోయినప్పటికీ వాడు అవినీతి పరుడే కానీ నీతి పరుడు కాదు.
One who loses morality, whatever
అట్టి
authority,
వ్యక్తుల వల్ల సమాజం ఏనాడు కూడా అభివృద్ధి కాల్చలేదు.
the society cannot develop through such individuals.
భారతదేశం యొక్క విశిష్టతను ఏనాడు కూడా వాడు కాపాడుకోలేడు.
He cannot protect the uniqueness of Bharat country.
కనుక
Therefore,
విద్యార్థులారా,
students,
విద్యా విధానాన్ని చక్కగా గుర్తించి వర్తించటము అత్యవసరం.
it is very ideal to recognize the system of education
మీరు
and conduct ourselves.
భావంలో మునగండి.
We should immerse
అందరినీ
yourselves
భగవద్భావంలో ముంచండి.
and immerse others
లివ్
also
ఇన్
in divine
గాడ్,
feeling.
మేక్ అదర్స్ లివ్ ఇన్ గాడ్.
Live in God and make others live in God.
Bhajami